Hey, what's going on guys? Arix here, and today we're back talking about Ghost of Tsushima. At the time of making this video, we are now 23 days away from this game. Honestly, I cannot wait. And in this video, I want to talk about combat, specifically katana combat. There was an article that went up on the PlayStation blog, and in that, Chris Zimmerman, the co-founder of Sucker Punch, basically spoke about the ethos behind katana design, spoke a little bit about some of the gameplay mechanics, stance switching, parrying, the kind of logic they applied behind sort of building the katana combat, and some of the stuff they've done to make it feel super satisfying, super challenging, that kind of thing. It's a really interesting article. I'll link it down below if you guys want to read it, but basically in this video I want to go through and sort of, quote some of the stuff they spoke about, give you some examples. They did include a couple of videos, only short videos, like 20 seconds long or whatnot, but it does give us a good idea as to how some of this stuff will play out. So if you guys do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. If you are excited for Ghost of Tsushima, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because when the game launches, we are going to be doing a ton of content for this game. Honestly, it is one of my most anticipated games this year, so I definitely plan to do lots of videos on it. But anyway, that aside, let's talk about this. So top level, to kind of quote the blog post, they said that their goal with Ghost of Tsushima was always to kind of capture the heart of the samurai fantasy. That is like one of the most important things they want to do. They want to transport players back to feudal Japan to basically live through the beauty and danger that was Tsushima Island under attack. Obviously, we play as Jin Sakai, who's trained his whole life in the way of the samurai. He's deadly with a katana, he's a confident horseman, and he's also skilled with a bow. However, they then want to say that their hopes of achieving that goal and creating the sort of time machine they were after, sort of taking you back to that time period, rested on capturing the right feel of the katana. Without katana combat that looked right, sounded right, and felt right, Ghost just wouldn't succeed. It would just be like another hack and slash game. They often spoke about in previous interviews how they took a lot of inspiration from great samurai movies. One of the ones they liked the most was the 13 Assassins, but they said obviously what works in movies doesn't always work in games. I mean, obviously behind the scenes in movies, everything is choreographed, it looks very nice, doesn't necessarily translate one for one. So they said in order to nail katana combat, they focused on three core things: speed, sharpness, and precision. First up on the speed front, this is actually really interesting because it sort of peels the curtain back on the sort of development process. They said that, obviously, they want katana attacks to be fast. Katanas apparently in real life are not that heavy, they're roughly 2 to 3 pounds, so quick slashes are the centre of most katana fighting styles, and all attacks in game are captured using their motion capture stage, so they do represent realistic movement speeds. However, they said the one challenge is that typical or realistic katana movement is actually a little bit too fast to react to. They said that human reaction times are typically around 0.3 seconds to respond to like visual stimulus, no matter how simple the stimulus they are. And while of course there is some variance between person to person, largely speaking about 0.3 seconds is the average. And the problem with that is that initially a lot of the design work they did on the katana combat was dancing around those limits. And while there's no problem with your attacks being fast, because obviously they can just program NPCs to react instantly, they did run into problems when the NPCs attacked that fast because players just simply couldn't react fast enough. And obviously the one difficulty with this is that when your attacks are arbitrarily fast, but Mongol attacks, the enemies that you're fighting, can't be faster than you can react, it then creates this weird imbalance where basically you're just hammering on the attack button, slicing through enemies, and it then doesn't give you the sort of deep samurai feeling. It just becomes like a hack and slash game, much more akin to something like Dynasty Warriors. Not to say Dynasty Warriors is a bad game, but that's not what they're trying to go for in this title. So they said to fix this, they changed a couple of things. They said that while there is a limit to how fast players can react, there is no limit to how fast they can anticipate. If an enemy launches an attack in a string, they need to give the player enough time to react to the first attack, but since subsequent attacks can then be anticipated, they can be arbitrarily fast. So what they basically said is, one of the examples they gave us, one of the Mongols might use, say, a 5-hit combo, and the first attack is just slow enough to give the player enough time to react to it, but the following attacks will then happen fast because obviously by that time you're being attacked, you can then line up your blocks, your parries, all the kind of necessary stuff. They said also to kind of add on the pressure, they've overlapped enemy attacks. Often you'll find in games you kind of get into these fights with big groups of enemies and they all attack you one at a time. They kind of just sort of wait and it just sort of becomes quite artificial. They said that what they started to do is overlap enemy attacks where, while you're fighting one enemy, the next enemy will be winding up their attack. Obviously, it's still going to give you a window enough to evade and block and whatnot, but you can sort of, instead of them just standing idle waiting for you to basically have a window to begin that attack, they're already going to start prepping to hunt you down. The end result of this is that effectively you then have barely enough time to deal with each enemy attack, so it then adds the pressure and basically makes you feel like you are, in these tense situations. The second big focus area they wanted to speak about was sharpness, to respect the katana. That was one of their mantras during development. Jin Sakai's family katana is called the Sakai Storm. It is a meter of razor edge steel, and it is basically incredibly sharp. In samurai films that inspired them, they said that, you typically look at it and a handful of cuts is normally enough to take down even the strongest enemies. And they didn't want to stray too far from that, which is really interesting because I actually made that comment in the previous sort of gameplay that they did take down a lot of enemies quite quickly, but now you kind of speak about it in that sort of vein, it actually makes more sense. It's not a game where enemies have tons of HP and you're hacking away at them for, 10 minutes. Most enemies will go down pretty quickly. However, they said, obviously keeping this in mind, if most enemies can be killed in a few swipes, that again creates an imbalance. So they said the Mongols, the enemies, do also keep their weapons just as sharp. So much like, realistic combat, if you were to say, Jin also can't ignore cuts, any easier than the Mongols, while you can kill enemies in a few swipes. If you're not careful when you're in combat and you're getting hit a lot, you too will go down very, very quickly. So don't expect you're just going to sort of sit there and farm things. There may well be ways to spec your character later, because obviously there's different things that we can get, different charms we can equip, things like that. But principally, you're always going to be in a position where a few attacks, a few well-placed enemy attacks that you haven't guarded, haven't blocked, haven't planned for, could well see you dying as well. It's important to note you have plenty of ways to evade attacks. You do have dodges, you do have the ability to block, you do have the ability to parry. Blocking is just the simple thing. You hold down L1, you block. If you block at the last minute, you can then parry, which will of course then give you the opening for a counterattack. And there is also the perfect parry, which is apparently an upgrade you get later on, so it's something you actually have to spec into, and that basically gives you the ability to follow a parry with a devastating finisher. So that's also going to be pretty nice for those of you guys that are good with your parries. That's typically not me, but I'll work on it. They then said the final big focus area for them was precision. The katana is a weapon that rewards precision, a lifetime of discipline and practice to make exactly the right cut at exactly the right moment, and it was important that the player got that same sense of precision. They said, of course, this starts with responsiveness, making sure that Jin reacts instantly to the player's inputs. Quick attacks happen very quickly. They work hard to make their animations fluid, to flow naturally between movements. But if you're forced to make a choice, responsiveness wins over physical accuracy. Jin does also have slower movements, more powerful attacks, but this is the interesting thing, they can also be cancelled in combat. So if you are winding up a slow attack and then suddenly you see yourself being rushed, you can cancel these and go into other movements. And of course, they said this is one of the important parts of high-level play, learning to, start high-level attacks only to cancel it when the circumstances change, against you. One of the other pillars of precision as well comes to the different stance switching. They said that, of course, Jin can attack his enemies in dozens of ways. Choosing exactly the right attack at the right moment is crucial, and Jin is, of course, forced to evolve beyond the lessons he was taught to incorporate what he learns from closely observing and fighting the Mongols. These lessons are distilled into new stances, collections of new attack techniques, which the player can switch between at any point. Each stance is designed to be particularly effective against a subset of the dozens of enemy types Jin faces. Switching between stances based on who Jin's faces amplifies his deadliness. So a couple of examples they gave us. You have the stone stance, which is his ancestral style. This is developed to fight other swordsmen, so it works well against the Mongol swordsman. However, you can then swap over to something like the water stance. Now, we're not entirely sure how many stances there are. If you look at the UI, there appear to be 3 over on the right. Whether that top one is also a stance or whether it's something else will of course remain to be seen. There's also a gap on the left, so whether you can unlock additional stances later on and then put that into that slot, again, not too sure on that one just yet. But the other stance they spoke about was water stance. This one is used to create an opening against shieldmen. So again, they said that Jin devises the water stance in frustration after the technique that he's practiced for decades proved ineffective against the Mongol shieldsmen. So, switching to that when you're fighting against people that can guard with shields is of course going to be important. So stance switching, definitely key to play, which is also really good. If any of you guys played Neo, I know it's a slightly different game, but the kind of stance switching in that was actually really, really interesting. There was a lot of kind of combat dynamics to that, so the fact that we've got that in this gameplay is also incredibly exciting. And then to round it all out, they said, of course, all these things, speed, sharpness, and precision, all combine to produce an experience that they think players will love. More precision means a more effective player, which means things can go faster and get more deadly to match. So, with that being said, that is a look at combat so far. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Honestly, everything they share right now, every time I see this game, it just gets more and more exciting. They even shared a small Twitter video the other day, just walking around this temple area where you went to go and engage with the vendor and sell something or buy something. It just looks fantastic. Every aspect, every kind of tiny detail in this game, I just get excited every time I see it. But anyway, that aside, that was a little look at combat. That was the sort of katana flow. If you guys have any questions, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of this. And again, don't forget to keep it locked because we'll be doing plenty more coverage for this game as we get closer to launch. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, you can join the Arix Gaming Discord. We've got an awesome community over there with so many different channels for you to chat loads of different topics and different games. I'm in there, the team's in there if you guys want to chat with us, find people to play with. It's just in general a great place to be. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads.